So let's move into our second talking point from the weekend, and um, it's probably been our kind of love affair of the last couple of months, and we've kind of tried to talk about it every chance we get. But IndyCar keeps coming back weekend after weekend, and for anyone who doesn't like IndyCar, who kind of keeps saying, why are these people talking about it every week? Unfortunately, Harry, it keeps delivering the goods. So until it stops delivering the goods, all we can do is talk about and reflect on those goods.
Yeah,
Now you're
mate.
making a word picture. Now you're making a word soup. Too many words.
Mate, I was watching that race today and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was
Yeah. Well,
outstanding.
before I take your reaction, because
Mm.
that's what I want, let's just paint a short, just a sketch. So if you haven't watched um, the race was won by Scott
Scotty
Dixon,
Dixon.
followed closely by our New Zealander Scotty McLaughlin,
Australia,
and
New
then
Zealand killing IndyCar, by the way.
yep, yep. So two New Zealanders, first and second. Third place went to um, was it Christian Lundgaard? No, Alex Palou.
Lungard. Oh,
Palou.
Pelot and Rossi.
Palou third, Rossi fourth, Herder fifth, Lundgaard sixth. And in relation to the championship, if you've got interested in IndyCar and have been following it, the two key protagonists, Will Power and Marcus Ericsson, both had some late drama. Will Power finished in 11th, and Ericsson, I think, might have got a DNF with 2 or 3 laps to go. So, again,
Have you seen
the
the standings?
yes, the complexity
Six
of the
points.
championship. Well, I think between the top six up to Palou, it might be 39 points. So going into the
No.
last three
Oh yeah.
races of the season, because there's three to go, um, between the top six, you know, everything is still to play for. So H, I'll get your reaction first. What did you make of the race in Nashville?
Mate, firstly, that track, over a bridge, everything, like,
Mm,
insane. I remember when Sydney was trying to bid for Formula One, I think it was last year when Melbourne was cancelled again, they were saying they were going to race over the bridge, and I was like, that'll never happen. But seeing it over the Nashville Bridge was pretty epic.
yeah,
Some of those sectors in that track, though, like, they were trying to make moves, and it was so tight. They were just crashing. Like, I lost count on how many bloody yellow flags there were. Does
it's
any?
pretty rowdy.
Mm,
I think the interesting thing was IndyCar is there's a lot of street circuits. There's a lot of narrow, twisty. Like I wouldn't say that any part of that circuit was unfamiliar territory for any of the drivers based on what they've raced in this year and in previous years. But for whatever the other thing to take into consideration, it rained pretty heavily before the race, and that's why the race was delayed. So whether there was a lack of grip that kept being underestimated, or whether, I mean, I think
I think
the
that is the worst of the street circuits in IndyCar, though.
yeah.
Like, if
mm,
you think about it, like even think about like Long Beach, I think was Toronto where we were before. There's a
mm,
lot of 90-degree corners, but they usually it's either a very wide corner coming into a narrow corner or a narrow corner coming into a wide corner. But
mm.
I think a lot of the problems on that track, and I thought it was a great race, but I thought the incidents were getting ridiculous.
Well,
The problem is that
Lee Diffie said last year there was 9 incidents, so it's
yeah,
obviously got a history of.
so it happened last year, it happened this year. But the thing is, it's always a really tight. It's a tight street coming onto another 90-degree tight street, and then there's also a bundle of tires as well.
Mm,
So either try and push the fence back and give it sort of a bit of an arc, or don't use that corner, because I think it actually, like, I think this race, the spectacle of the race was hurt by the amateur look of some of the incidents.
I wouldn't go that far. I'd probably say that the
I
race,
didn't like it. I didn't
yeah,
like
but I
that
just
much of
think
it
it was.
today.
I think the nature of the track is difficult, and I think it was a perfect example of safety car breeding safety cars.
mm,
And there was a number of like it's getting late in the season. There's a number of people trying to make something happen this season. There was a number of people buried in the pack whether it was Power or whether it was Grosjean trying to make, like, everyone, or Newgarden trying to push through. There was a number of drivers out of position that were definitely
Yeah, but
forcing the
if you think
envelope. And I
if you
think the safety cars just kind of exacerbated like their antsiness, and they thought, oh, I've got to make the moves now to get back to the front. And what we ended up seeing was just a little bit of, it was amateurish, but at the same time, like, I love the I love how raw the racing is, and I love how just through the very formula of the sport, these kind of passing in a racing category is still accessible. And I think the other awesome thing to see was when these overtakes were happening, going into the next corner, you had the car that was overtaking on the inside, the car that was hung out to dry on the outside, and both of them were drifting, trying to get on the gas to kind of hold position or to make, like, it was just, it's so gnarly. And
yeah, but that's all well and good. But
so your ping
when
is
you
so
have
bad right now, mate.
I said, well, that's all well and good. But when you have two of your sort of championship favorites impacted in the same incident, you have Pato O'Ward's gearbox break, and then he hits Will Power, who then has problems with his car as well from the same incident for the rest of the race, because the cars actually can't fit around the corner quick enough, so they just stop, and then one guy hits him at the back. I feel like that is not a good look for the sport. And yeah, when the racing was good, when the racing's good, it's good. But I feel like more so than any track, except maybe the last corner at Long Beach, there was too many corners on that track that were just too tight, way too tight. Because these aren't Formula E cars where they can't, like, Formula E cars can't really fishtail and shit that much. Like, it's a totally different power output.
I think if you were to look at the like track silhouette of Long Beach, you'd probably wonder why the track was the shape it is. And if you saw it, you'd probably say that looks like a pretty crappy track.
It is a crappy track.
But with that initial thought in mind, the spectacle that it gives, the overtaking that still occurs, there's something to that track that isn't.
Which Long Beach?
No, Nashville. Like, I don't think it was nearly as bad as you thought. And to be honest with you, you're going to have some races. I mean, there probably was a little bit too many crashes, but just as much as good racing attracts new fans to the sport, carnage does too. And I think this was probably an example of a little bit of carnage, and I feel like you always need crash highlights for your end of season review anyway. So
but there were shit crashes.
This will be the.
But I don't think it's even the severity of the crashes or whatever. I think it's all those incidents kind of bring the field back together, and it's they're still racing for the win on lap 80 of 80. Do you know what I mean? Like, they were what, half a tenth less separated at the finish line. Like, awesome.
Yeah, it was a close finish.
The other thing is, going into this race, there was still mathematically a very good chance for 9 or 10 of the drivers to make a push for the championship with 4 rounds to go. And again, like, 4 rounds is not a lot. And everyone was, like, no one was settling today. And I think that was the first time this season we've seen, everybody that can make a push, do everything they can to make the push. And I think that just leads to tight racing, and people will make mistakes. I mean, Newgarden made a mistake with Grosjean. We saw the 2 Andretti guys go a lap down in the first 10 laps and somehow come back to finish 4th and 5th. I mean, it was just a race where everyone was pushing to the maximum because the championship's coming to an end. And I think one of the things that's a really nice picture of Joe. I think one of the things that has to be considered in IndyCar, just due to the nature of the short calendar relative to something like Formula One. 16 races is not a lot by current calendars. So every race counts.
That's kind of my point, I guess, that Will Power can't afford many more weekends like this one, where he's mired down in 10th or 11th, because Scott Dixon's 6 points behind. Mate, it's going to go right down to the wire, but he cannot afford another weekend like this one, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I think the good thing for Will Power is traditionally Penske are very strong at the next track, which is Phoenix for the Bommarito 500. Traditionally, they've been very strong there. Ganassi are traditionally quite strong at the Laguna Seca race, which is the last race of the year. And Portland is a little bit of a unknown, which is the second last race. So I guess, yeah, he had an ordinary race, but his recent trajectory before this round was pretty strong.
Is that
And
willpower?
and I'd probably back him still to take out the championship. But it's
Really?
good. Definitely, I do. I back him to take. I think
With
next
Dixon
week.
6 points behind.
Yeah. I think I've
I
still
want,
got.
I want him to take it out.
Well, if you're saying the next track is a Penske stronghold kind of thing, then it would make sense that he pulls out a bit of a lead on Dixon.
Well,
then.
yeah, Penske have been pretty strong on the short ovals this year, but even traditionally over the last couple of years. So I would expect them to be pretty dominant next year. The other good thing, I mean, actually, the amazing thing about both the two front-running teams, Penske and Ganassi, right now, is we saw for the majority of the race, all three of the Penskes and all three of the Ganassis in the top 8.
Mate,
I mean,
how good was Scotty McLaughlin this weekend?
He was awesome. I mean, he got
was
a little bit
vibing.
unlucky just with all the safety cars. He really did nothing wrong himself. But that's probably an off-season conversation it's almost like he's done his rookie year, he's done his sophomore year, and he's kind of in a position now where I mean, even by his body language, I think his body language and his rhetoric in interviews, but also on social media, is now that he is an IndyCar driver. Yeah. He's not someone who's come from supercars to IndyCar. He's an IndyCar driver. And I think even today we saw when he does put the car in a good position in qualifying, and it's kind of, he does revert back to his natural climate of being at the front of a field. I mean, he's almost unstoppable.
That move that he made after the final safety car on, was it Pillow?
Yeah.
Into that corner. Wow.
Yeah. He made a few good, like he put up a social today on Instagram of all his moves from the race, and he was killing it all race. I mean, I don't know. He definitely
put
belongs
money on
in
him next
IndyCar.
year.
Yeah, I think he's also kind of vindicated himself, because it's definitely a ballsy move to leave the surety of an awesome finish at Supercars to kind of take the next step and go into IndyCar. And this year, I mean, he's got the most wins this year. No, sorry, second most wins. I mean, Newgarden's got 4, he's got 3, and it's his second year in the sport. So big things from Scotty McLaughlin for season 2023. But with 3 races to go, I think we can mathematically say now that the race is down to the top 6 being Power, Dixon, Newgarden, I think, Ericsson, Pillow,
and Scotty McLaughlin.
Scotty's not close enough to.
Scotty's too far.
He's on 392.
There's 5 guys left.
Top 5, I think it might be something like 40 points.
The thing of Scotty though, Scotty can get himself in between willpower and the chasing pack, or Newgarden and the chasing pack. Yeah, like that's where he's going to be a valuable asset, because he's got the pace to actually do it. So that's going to be interesting.
The point that I actually was going to make, and then kind of painted a different picture, was that this weekend we saw. Well, obviously we have Newgarden and McLaughlin that are always performing for Penske, but we've seen over the last 2 races, Christian Lundgaard finished 3rd, and then he finished 5th or 6th today. He was coming 3rd for the majority of the race, but I think he's also kind of taken the next step as a rookie this year with Ganassi, and he can also act as a bit of a windbreak if Pillow or Dixon was to kind of have a strong result and just steal a few more points from Penske as well. So, I mean, both teams have all their guns firing, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And then also you've got those drivers like Herder, like Grosjean, like
Pato,
O'Ward now, Rossi. All of those drivers are just racing for, race wins at this stage. And they're just literally throwing caution to the wind. Like some of the moves that we saw today, 100% caution thrown to the wind, which was awesome. I think even like probably don't need to talk about it, but the two rookies, Malukas and Kirkwood, up until they crashed into each other. I mean, even the young guys in IndyCar are killing it. It's. I don't know how many times we can say it. If you're not watching it, oh, there goes Joey. If you're not watching it, H, you're really missing out.
100%. I didn't really watch it when I was before I got on the pod. You know, I remember you talking about it and how good it was, but I was kind of like, oh, it's at a stupid hour. I'm not going to watch it, kind of thing.
Mm.
But now, like, I was at work and I was like, I have to watch it.
And it's at a stage now where kind of your elitism has washed away, and you're kind of just embracing the spectacle.